All right. We didn't have an episode last week. Life was busy.
At a grad party.
Yep. Graduation party for your older sister. Not oldest.
Older.
You're the youngest. So they're all older. Anyway, life was crazy. Didn't happen. Oh well. We'll keep pushing on. It's fine.
What's one missed week?
It's not consistent. That's what one missed week means. It's okay.
Okay, we have a reasonable excuse for that.
And we'll do a 2-week. No, never mind. We'll see. Anyway, we got a couple of things planned, but first of all, you're Phoenix, and I'm Will, and we're here to bring on the questions. First, we got to tell people where to find us.
Yes, that's very important every time.
You know where to find us?
Linktree.com/BOTQS.
That's the easiest and best place to find all the links. I try to keep it updated. And the links that are on there, the best ones are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and pretty much wherever else you can get podcasts is where you can listen. You can watch the episode on YouTube, if that's more your thing. Don't do too many clips. We should do clips. Unless you want to start grabbing clips. No?
Maybe.
So, Miss Phoenix, return of Bring on the Questions after a week break. What question are we bringing in this episode?
What is the Mandela Effect? Or what are Mandela Effects?
Right. Pretty interesting. It's like a mind-blowing thing. And before we get into the notes, it's almost like people can be convinced one way or the other of these things that are potentially misremembered or something really did change. If you want to get real deep and parallel university.
Or, I'm pretty sure that in the Mandela Effect about Pikachu, the Pokemon, having a black-tipped tail, I'm pretty sure that is true and that he doesn't just have the brown at the base of his tail.
I think one denotes male, one denotes female in the Pokemon world. I think. Is that right?
I feel like it's the shape of the black-tipped tail that depends on whether it's male or female.
All right. It's a very specific one. But that really doesn't tell us, or anyone who doesn't know what Mandela effects are, what a Mandela effect is.
Yes.
I guess we'll get into the notes, huh?
But I'm just saying, because, like, some things can be true that other people have said that weren't true, so it became a Mandela Effect. But it can be disproven as it was real, and that other people were just saying that it wasn't real.
A lot to follow. You gotta follow along every word you said to get to get that. But we gotta back up a little bit and get a little explanation about the whole Mandela effect, why it's called Mandela effect.
I don't even know that.
Ooh, we're gonna get into it. The Mandela effect is a compelling social phenomenon characterized by widespread, shared false memories among a large group of people. We're going to delve into its origin, tracing back to Fiona Broom's observations regarding Nelson Mandela's death. We're going to touch on the nature of memory, cognitive mechanisms like confabulation, source monitoring errors, and the influence of cognitive bases such as schemas and confirmation bias. Ultimately, what?
You said bases.
Bias. Yeah, confirmation bias. Right. Ultimately, the Mandela effect serves as a powerful reminder of the limitations of individual and collective memory, highlighting its susceptibility to distortion and the critical importance of external verification and discerning reality.
The Mandela Effect is defined as a social phenomenon in which a large group of people collectively and incorrectly remember very specific details about a person, place, situation, or event as if it were a reality, when in fact it was not. It represents a type of false memory that occurs when numerous individuals incorrectly recall the same information. This phenomenon is distinct from simple confusion or isolated instances of forgetting. It involves memories that demonstrably do not align with reality, yet are shared by a collective, often creating a disconcerting experience for those involved.
Yeah, it almost gives people like an existential crisis. Like, I misremembered that and I didn't know that for 20 years. I always thought it was this until right now. Like the cornucopia and the Hanes logo.
Or was it Fruit of the Loom?
Yeah, that's right. Fruit of the Loom. But there's no cornucopia.
I don't think there is. It's just fruit.
Right. But so many people, and I have it in my mind, of a brown cornucopia full of fruit.
I don't know.
A striking characteristic of the Mandela Effect is the high degree of confidence individuals often express in their incorrect recollections. People will convince other people that this is the thing, and then those people are convinced as well. People frequently believe these events occurred or remember them vividly, even when presented with contradictory evidence. This observation suggests a significant disjunction between the subjective feeling of remembering and the objective accuracy of the memory. The subjective experience of memory, therefore, cannot always be regarded as a reliable indicator of its veracity, a fundamental aspect that makes these collective false memories particularly difficult to self-correct.
While the Mandela Effect can be unsettling, it is generally not considered evidence of parallel universes, shifting timelines, or other speculative explanations. But it's fun to speculate on what's happening in parallel universes. Instead, it is understood as a reflection of the fundamental properties and inherent limitations of how human memory operates. The widespread recognition of this phenomenon in the contemporary era is significantly influenced by the Internet. The term itself emerged from online discussions, and the rapid
Dissemination
of information across social media platforms contributes to its prevalence. The Internet does not create false memories, but rather serves as a powerful catalyst, revealing their collective nature and amplifying their spread. This amplification can lead to the formation of engagement echo chambers, where incorrect information is widely shared and reinforced, thereby making it challenging for individuals to discern factual accuracy from widespread misremembering. This dynamic has broader implications for how misinformation propagates in the digital age, extending beyond mere memory phenomena to influence societal beliefs and public discourse.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a whole misremembering thing, and other people convincing other people that what they're remembering is the true thing. Or we're a little shifty in the parallel universes. That's a fun way to think of it.
There's a wormhole somewhere.
There is some thought that there are these miniature rogue black holes all over the place, even on Earth. I don't know how that works. I think that's where all the missing socks go. He's white.
It's his stomach.
The term Mandela Effect was initially coined in 2009 by Fiona Broom, a paranormal researcher. That's an interesting connection. How did she get to do it? Broom established a website to document her observations after she discovered that she, along with numerous other individuals, held a strong belief that Nelson Mandela, the former South African president, had died in a South African prison during the 1980s. This collective memory included vivid details such as news coverage of his death and a speech delivered by his widow. So people remembered him going to jail, and then people somehow remembered him dying in prison with news coverage and a speech by his widow, the whole thing. But then when we read the next paragraph, we'll see that he was released from prison. And people were like, hold up, didn't he die? However, the historical reality is that Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990. People thought he died in the 80s, after a 27-year incarceration. He went on to serve as the first president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. Then he passed away in 2013. Broom's initial surprise stemmed from realizing she was not alone in her false recollection. The fact that many others online shared her incorrect memory of Mandela's death was pivotal to the term's popularization. This highlights a crucial social dynamic. When individuals discover that others share their misremembered details, they are more inclined to believe their own recollections are accurate, which further solidifies the false memory within the collective consciousness. This suggests that social validation can, in certain circumstances, override factual accuracy in the process of memory consolidation, rendering collective false memories particularly resistant to correction.
It is noteworthy that Fiona Broom, as a paranormal researcher, initially interpreted these discrepancies through the lens of pseudoscientific theories, such as the existence of parallel realities. However, the scientific community subsequently adopted the term to rigorously investigate the underlying cognitive mechanisms of these phenomena, largely refuting
Yep.
paranormal explanations. This
Dichotomy
underscores the scientific process of examining an observed phenomenon, even one named and initially explained by non-scientists, and systematically investigating its empirical basis. This approach ultimately shifts the understanding from speculative narratives to evidence-based explanations, reflecting a common public inclination towards fantastical explanations, and when confronted with perplexing cognitive experiences. As the concept gained traction, the story of Nelson Mandela proved not to be an isolated incident, and other instances of shared false memories began to surface.
Here we go. And thus the Mandela Effect and ultimately the Mandela Effects are born. Human memory is not a perfect recording device, akin to a camera or digital storage unit. Instead, it is a highly malleable and reconstructive process profoundly influenced by various factors such as suggestions, biases, perceptions, preconceptions, expectations, and the passage of time. When an individual attempts to recall an event, the brain does not simply retrieve a pristine recording. Rather, it actively reconstructs the event based on prior experiences and existing knowledge, a process inherently susceptible to errors and distortions.
The brain's approach to memory storage often involves an efficiency-accuracy trade-off. It endeavors to conserve cognitive resources by not meticulously recording every single detail encountered. Instead, memory employs time-saving, efficient tricks, prioritizing the gist and overall meaning of an experience over absolute fidelity to every minute detail. This inherent design, while highly efficient for navigating daily life, simultaneously renders memory vulnerable to subtle distortions. The brain optimizes for rapid processing and the creation of coherent narratives, even if this means sacrificing absolute accuracy in specific recollections. This fundamental trade-off is the root cause of many false memories.
Love it. Brain is crazy. Furthermore, the number of specific details retained from an event tends to diminish over time, and even freely recalled details are not perfectly accurate. This observation points to a critical amplification loop. The more an event is recalled, the more susceptible it becomes to alteration, particularly when influenced by external sources of information, which is kind of weird. So, the more you try to remember something, the more you keep bringing the memory up, the more likely you're altering that memory. So you're solidifying the wrongness. Brains are crazy. Perhaps we're all just brains in a bucket. The Boltzmann brain? Never heard of that? You were just a brain in a bucket, and the brain has built the entire world. Whose brain are we in?
I don't know.
Yours? Mine? Is everyone but you an NPC? It's an existential crisis.
I don't want a single player game.
Where was I? Each act of remembering is, in essence, an act of re-encoding. If external misinformation or internal biases are present during this re-encoding process, the memory can be subtly modified. This implies that merely thinking about a memory, especially if it is a shared experience subject to discussion and external input, can inadvertently contribute to its distortion over time, leading to a phenomenon akin to truth decay. Interesting.
So the truth decays because brain likes a summary of the day instead of the actual what happened.
And if it's a group effort, then everybody's talking about the thing, and then somebody is like, this happened. They're like, oh yeah, that did happen. And then everybody's remembering it happened that way, even though it happened a slightly different way. Awesome. Or is it? Everybody has their own reality.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Confabulation refers to the spontaneous generation of false memories by an individual, often as means to compensate for gaps or missing information in their existing memory. This process occurs without conscious awareness. Individuals are not intentionally fabricating information or lying, but genuinely believe the false memory to be true. The brain, driven by innate need for narrative coherence, automatically fills these gaps with plausible information derived from existing knowledge and expectations. This results in the creation of detailed yet inaccurate memories that feel as real and authentic as genuine experiences. This cognitive drive to construct a coherent narrative, even at the expense of factual accuracy, suggests a fundamental cognitive imperative to make sense of the world. When gaps in recollection emerge, the brain actively constructs plausible scenarios rather than leaving them blank, which explains why confabulated memories often align with an individual's pre-existing knowledge framework and making them particularly convincing to the person experiencing them.
You just make stuff up. Your brain's missing some information, so just make stuff up. AI is starting to do that. Just making stuff up. Hilarious.
It does have intelligence, but it also makes stuff up.
And apparently so do people. So nobody or no thing is perfect.
Nothing is perfect.
Source monitoring errors occur when individuals fail to accurately identify the origin or source of their memories. This can manifest as confusing real events with imagined ones, or misattributing information acquired from unreliable sources as factual memories. Research has demonstrated the ease with which these errors can arise, with a notable percentage of participants in studies failing to recognize events that were entirely fabricated. This difficulty in distinguishing between internally generated thoughts, such as imagination or inferences, and externally perceived events like actual experiences or factual information from credible sources represents a significant challenge for the brain. This blurring is exacerbated by the constant influx of information from various media, making it increasingly difficult for the brain to accurately tag the precise source of every piece of information. The sheer volume and diversity of information in the contemporary digital landscape can heighten susceptibility to source monitoring errors, as the cognitive system struggles to keep track of the myriad origins of information. The brain employs both heuristic, quick unconscious, and systematic conscious evaluation, judgments, and evaluating memories, and errors occur when these processes fail to accurately attribute the source.
Cognitive biases play a significant role in the formation of collective false memories. Two prominent biases are particularly relevant. Schemas? Schemas are organized packets of knowledge or mental frameworks that guide memory, facilitating the understanding of new information, but also potentially introducing distortions. Our minds tend to adjust or tweak details to align with these existing schemas. For instance, the cultural stereotype of a wealthy individual, often depicted with a top hat and cane, might implicitly include a monocle, influencing the memory of characters like the Monopoly Man, even if he never wore one. While schemas are essential for efficient information processing, allowing for rapid comprehension and prediction of situations, this efficiency comes at the cost of precision. Our brains may fill in details based on these pre-existing templates, even if those details are factually incorrect. This explains the remarkable consistency observed in many visual Mandela effects, as shared cultural schemas often lead to shared false memories, demonstrating how cognitive shortcuts can systematically introduce errors into specific recollections. And technically, the monocle on the Monopoly Man is kind of correct, because I have seen that there was a version of the Monopoly game where it was in like the 1990s, and he did have a monocle.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Sure it wasn't Mr. Peanut?
I don't know.
Mr. Peanut had the monocle and a top hat. Confabulating. Confirmation bias. This bias describes the human tendency to seek, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or hypothesis, while simultaneously giving disproportionately less consideration to alternative possibilities. When individuals believe they possess a certain memory, confirmation bias leads them to focus on information that supports their belief, often overlooking or forgetting contradictory evidence. People are just like, this is how I remember it, and I don't care what else you say, you can't convince me otherwise, it's the way it was. Tough. And they don't want to go easy on that idea. What'd you find there?
I was looking up a 1990s Monopoly game.
Monocle or no monocle?
I saw Monopoly Junior, and he didn't have a monocle.
Let's see. Often overlooking or forgetting contradictory evidence. This phenomenon is not limited to individual cognition. It is significantly amplified in social contexts. When individuals with a shared false memory discuss it, confirmation bias drives them to seek and interpret information that validates their collective and incorrect belief, while dismissing any evidence that challenges it. An echo chamber. I tell you the thing, you're like, yes, of course that's the thing. And now confirms what I've been thinking. Now that you've said what you've been thinking, yes, we're bouncing the idea off each other. Echo chamber. You're echoing what I'm saying. That's how the echo chamber works. And then now if we tell somebody else and they're like, yeah, that's it, and everybody's just bouncing the same idea off each other.
Like a little triangle or
Echo
square.
chamber. It is. And there's times when it's all coming together wrong. There it is right there. This creates a self-reinforcing echo chamber, making it exceedingly difficult for the collective to self-correct. This dynamic has profound implications for the propagation of misinformation and the formation of group beliefs, particularly within online communities where shared narratives can quickly solidify. Go ahead.
The formation and persistence of collective false memories are significantly influenced by external factors, including suggestion, repetition, and social reinforcement. Suggestion. Misleading information, whether explicit or subtle, can effectively implant false memories. The power of suggestion is a well-documented mechanism through which false memories can be introduced. Techniques such as priming, where exposure to a stimulus influences a response to a subsequent example. A leading question can inadvertently.
Where exposure to a stimulus influences a response to a subsequent stimulus can trigger.
I'm just going to restart that sentence.
Okay.
Techniques such as priming, where exposure to a stimulus influences a response to a subsequent stimulus, can trigger specific recollections and influence memory formation. For example, a leading question can inadvertently guide an individual towards a specific, potentially false memory. Can I read the second one?
No, I'll read the second one. I was just trying to think of an example of that. Like you prime somebody to begin thinking a certain way. Like, I don't know, maybe this isn't a good example, but when we're thinking of dinner, like we get you ready. Everybody gets ready, like we're gonna do garlic bread and we're gonna do homemade pizzas, and you're all prepped and ready for it. Your body knows it wants the garlic bread and the pizza stuff, but then we don't get it. That's a letdown. I guess it's not really priming for false memory, but
false information.
Now you're primed for it. So I guess that's an example of priming somebody. So now we're primed for that meal, and now we're not getting that meal.
Like it just happened yesterday.
Yes, that was why it came up. But now you're primed for, I don't know, a red sauce type meal.
A little pizza.
Right.
Instead of mac and cheese
and that's I guess I'm confusing everything. It's sort of subconscious. You're primed for a subconscious thing. Like if you watch enough commercials for Burger King, you're gonna want Burger King. So now if you prime somebody with a certain thing, like we're talking about, well, the Mandela effects, we talked about the Fruit of the Loom thing, the cornucopia. So now that you've been primed to look for the cornucopia, maybe you'll see the cornucopia in something. You tell somebody else, and somebody else will see it, and whoever else is listening to this will be primed for that.
Yeah.
It's weird how that works. Repetition, illusory truth effect. Frequent repetition of a statement or piece of information can significantly influence whether it is perceived as true, regardless of its factual accuracy. A statement repeated consistently over time can begin to feel true, even if it is not. This phenomenon, known as the illusory truth effect, is often leveraged in advertising and political discourse. In the context of the Mandela Effect, the constant repetition of misinformation, particularly in popular culture or online discussions, can profoundly shape and solidify memories, making the incorrect version feel more meaningful and authentic than the actual reality. Can we do that one?
I can do it. Social reinforcement. Many instances of the Mandela Effect emerge and persist within social groups, where individuals discuss and inadvertently reinforce each other's false beliefs. The children's game of telephone serves as a simple analogy, illustrating how an original message can become muddled as it is passed along, leading many participants to internalize the distorted version. In the digital age, this effect is amplified. False information has been observed to spread significantly faster than accurate information online, with real user accounts, not just automated bots, serving as primary vectors for misinformation. Repeated exposure to incorrect details within these social networks strengthens conviction in false memories, creating a social contagion of memory. This implies that memory is not solely an individual cognitive process, but also a deeply social one, susceptible to contagion. When a false memory is shared, discussed, and reinforced within a community, it acquires a social reality that can make it feel more authentic and resistant to correction, even when factually incorrect. This highlights the delicate balance between individual cognitive processing and the powerful influence of social dynamics on our perception of reality.
Everybody wants to fit in. So somebody said, "Oh, this is a thing," and somebody else says, "Yeah, I remember that. That's a thing." And then somebody else who may not be totally convinced yet is slowly getting more convinced by the group that it's a thing. They're like, I'm not sure, but come on, man. You remember the cornucopia? It's brown. It's got shades in it. It was definitely part of the Fruit of the Loom logo. I don't know, man. And then you start describing it more and more, and it just starts solidifying in the brain.
It kind of reminds me of the logical fallacy that I learned in ELA.
All right.
Bandwagon, where it's like a commercial will be like, everyone has this product, so you should too.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to convince you to buy it because you want to fit in with the crowd.
Fear of missing out. FOMO. You want to be part of the group. Now you're influenced by your peers and celebrities. Beyond the core cognitive mechanisms, several other factors can increase an individual's susceptibility to forming false memories, thereby contributing to the prevalence of the Mandela Effect. I know we're doing a lot of this preamble brain stuff, but we are going to talk about a few Mandela effects by the end of this.
Yes.
So age, stress, lack of sleep, and impairment. Research indicates that certain physiological and psychological states can heighten the likelihood of experiencing false memories. For instance, advanced age, elevated stress levels, insufficient sleep, and the use of certain drugs or alcohol have all been associated with an increased propensity for memory distortion.
It's like people who partied that night, the night before, don't really remember much of it the day after.
Or remember it in a wrong way, because they were fuzzy.
Yes. They were a little out of it.
Yes.
Emotional stimuli. While emotional experiences often enhance memory formation and vividness, particularly when processed through the amygdala, they can paradoxically also increase susceptibility to false memories. This is especially true for negatively charged events, where the emotional intensity might lead to a focus on the emotional gist at the expense of factual accuracy. Like, you were sad that day, so
this thing makes you sad. It enhances memory formation and vividness. So now that is causing you to be more sad, right? So you're creating false memories with your sadness or your joy even.
Yeah.
one way or the other. Incomplete information / gaps. When individuals possess incomplete information about an event or situation, their brains tend to fill in the missing details based on the information they do have and their internal biases. This natural tendency to create a coherent narrative, even from fragmented data, can inadvertently lead to the generation of false memories that seamlessly integrate with existing knowledge.
Time. The passage of time is a significant factor in memory malleability.
Hmm?
The number of specific details remembered from an event naturally declines over time. This decay creates more gaps in the memory trace, making it more vulnerable to confabulation, external suggestion, and social reinforcement. It is notable that many prominent examples of the Mandela Effect relate to childhood experiences or events from the distant past. This observation suggests that the Mandela Effect is not merely how false memories form, but also when they are most likely to take root, often in the fertile ground of fading or incomplete recollections,
Mm-hmm.
where the brain has more room to reconstruct or fill in information based on later influences.
That's interesting because Fruit of the Loom thing when I was a kid, the Berenstain Bear thing when I was a kid, Nelson Mandela. I was born in 1982, and he got out of prison in the 90s when I was a kid. It'll be interesting to see what kind of things might seem different when you are 10 years older than you are now.
When I'm an adult.
Are we going to know the Apple logo going to change in such a way that this one is going to be a false one? Is the Google logo going to be different? It'll be interesting.
Yep.
Now we're going to talk about some examples of alleged Mandela effects. Here we go. The Berenstain Bears, a persistent spelling discrepancy. The false memory. A significant number of individuals vividly recall the popular children's book series being spelled Berenstain, Berenstein, bears, with an E. This particular spelling is deeply ingrained in the memories of many who grew up with the books. But the reality, the correct and consistent spelling of the series name is and always has been Berenstain, Berenstein, bears, with an A. The series was named after its authors, Stan and Jan Berenstain, whose surname also features an A. Which, that makes sense.
I always remembered Bernstein.
With an E?
Yeah.
But the authors have an A. Why would they change it?
I don't
know. Psychological explanation. This example is particularly compelling due to its linguistic nature. The common misremembering of Berenstein suggests a strong interplay between orthographic spelling and phonetic sound influences on memory. The name Berenstain, with an A, may sound less common or more unusual than Berenstein, which aligns with a more typical English spelling pattern for similar sounding words. Our cognitive systems tend to normalize or regularize information to fit existing schemas or more familiar linguistic patterns. The phonetic pronunciation of the name, often heard as Steen, in audio tapes of the books or in general conversation, may have subtly overridden the actual visual spelling. This suggests a hierarchy of memory encoding, where what sounds right or looks common can inadvertently distort the actual visual detail. Furthermore, some early merchandise reportedly featured both spellings, which could have introduced initial confusion and contributed to the widespread misremembering. This highlights how auditory input and early exposure to inconsistent information can have a lasting impact on collective memory formation. So think about that. If the merchandise, if marketing somewhere, somebody messed up, like if the books were printed in say, Denver, Colorado, and also Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they were being printed one way in Denver with an E and the other way in Philadelphia with an A, that's going to mess a lot of people up. And there's going to be physical evidence of both. Going to handle one about Vader then?
Darth Vader's misquoted revelation, "No, I am your father." A false memory. One of the most frequently misquoted movie lines in cinematic history is widely remembered as Darth Vader uttering, "Luke, I am your father."
Come on, you can't do a deeper voice than that?
I am a young female.
You could do it. No, go ahead.
During a pivotal scene in Star Wars Episode 5,
Yep.
The Empire Strikes Back. This version is deeply embedded in popular culture. The reality. The actual line spoken by Darth Vader in the film is, "No, I am your father." The omission of Luke and the presence of "no" fundamentally alter the phrasing. Psychological explanation. I switched the This discrepancy is primarily explained by the principles of familiarity and repetition, also known as the illusory truth effect. The misquoted line, "Luke, I am your father," has been extensively repeated in popular culture, parodies, memes, and casual conversation, making it far more familiar than the original dialogue. This frequent repetition causes the false version to feel more correct and authentic over time, solidifying its place in collective memory. Furthermore, this example illustrates how memory often prioritizes narrative impact over precise factual detail. The addition of Luke makes the line more direct, personal, and arguably more impactful in a narrative sense, which may contribute to its perceived memorability and widespread adoption. The brain may optimize the memory for maximum dramatic effect, leading to a more memorable, albeit inaccurate version. This highlights how emotional
salience
can influence memory reconstruction, potentially leading to a better story in our minds. Additionally, individuals often recall the general gist of the revelation that Vader is Luke's father, but not the exact wording. The widespread circulation of the misquote acts as a powerful form of social suggestion, influencing the formation of new memories or subtly distorting existing ones.
It sounds cooler. It sounds more impactful. I think that's part of the problem. Like, people embellish these things, and it sounds more impactful. Like, perhaps it wasn't the best way to write the line. Maybe it was better, and it sounds better to all these people who misremember it, that Vader should have said, "Luke, I am your father," as opposed to, "No, I am your father." It sounds more impactful if he puts his name in there. That's what I think. People are misremembering it because they want it to be better. They want their version of it. Something like that. Here we go. The Monopoly Man. The case of the absent monocle. The false memory. A pervasive misconception is that the Monopoly Man, officially known as Rich Uncle Pennybags, wears a monocle in addition to his iconic top hat and mustache. Many individuals express high confidence in this particular visual detail. But the reality, Rich Uncle Pennybags has never worn a monocle in the standard U.S. editions of the Monopoly game since his introduction in 1936. While minor instances of a monocle have appeared in specific contexts, such as the European version of Monopoly Junior, or a Facebook post, these isolated occurrences do not account for the widespread nature of this false memory. The psychological explanation. This is a prime example of the visual Mandela effect, where shared false visual memories of pop culture icons are consistently replicated across individuals. The primary psychological mechanism at play here is a schema-driven error. The stereotype, so you're primed for this rich Uncle Pennybags, rich person. You're primed with the stereotype that rich people with top hats should have monocles. The stereotype of a wealthy man from that era often includes a monocle as a symbol of affluence and sophistication. Our brains utilize existing mental templates, schemas, to interpret new experiences and reconstruct memories. This process can unintentionally alter or distort memories to align with these pre-existing beliefs and assumptions about how things should be. The combination of a suit, cane, and monocle fits the cultural stereotype of a rich person, leading the brain to fill in the missing detail. Studies on the visual Mandela effect show that participants consistently reproduce the same errors when asked to draw these characters from memory, such as drawing the Monopoly Man with a monocle. This suggests that certain inherent qualities in the images themselves, or the strong cultural schemas associated with them, reliably trigger the same false memory across individuals, moving beyond random forgetting to a systematic, predictable distortion. Furthermore, the false memory may be reinforced by association with other well-known characters, such as Mr. Peanut, the mascot for Planters Peanuts, who does wear a monocle, a top hat, and carries a cane. Our brains can combine subjects with similar traits, leading to such memory distortions. A scene in the film Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, where a character is referred to as a Monopoly Man wearing a monocle, may have also contributed to the false memory.
I didn't know that last part.
In Ace Ventura?
Yeah.
I remember that scene. He was bald. And crazy mustache. Monocle. Or I'm misremembering. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Fruit of the Loom, the elusive cornucopia in the logo.
Mm-hmm.
The false memory. A considerable number of individuals are convinced that the Fruit of the Loom logo historically included a cornucopia, or horn of plenty behind the depicted fruit. This memory is often vivid and persistent. The reality, the Fruit of the Loom logo, since its inception as far back as 1893, has consistently featured a simple arrangement of an apple, various grapes, and leaves on a plain white background with no cornucopia ever present. And I'm pretty sure it's a white, not white, green apple.
Don't mess it up now. This is the Mandela effect happening in real time. What are you doing?
Maybe it's both red and green. I don't know. I feel like there's green. Not physiological. Psychological explanation. While the precise origin of this widespread false memory is not entirely clear, it can be understood through the lens of confabulation and schema-driven processes. A cornucopia is a widely recognized symbol of abundance and harvest, frequently depicted overflowing with fruits and vegetables. Given the brand's name and its focus on fruit, the brain might unconsciously fill in a cornucopia as a fitting and plausible element within the logo's theme. This suggests that schemas can operate at a more abstract symbolic level, where a plausible association, fruit plus abundance equals cornucopia, combines with social reinforcement to create a false memory. This highlights the complexity of memory distortion, where multiple mechanisms might be at play beyond simple visual schemas. Some argue that there is no direct reason to associate fruit with this specific container, which challenges a straightforward schema explanation. However, the symbolic connection remains strong. The widespread discussion and belief in the cornucopia's existence, particularly within online communities, can further reinforce this false memory through social reinforcement and suggestion. The collective nature of this misremembering demonstrates how shared, albeit incorrect, cultural narratives can shape individual recollection.
That one was kind of weird because there's no reason that fruit should be associated with a cornucopia. So where did the cornucopia come from?
Yeah.
Nobody uses a cornucopia anymore.
Maybe
it's only depicted in like Pilgrim Thanksgiving stuff.
Yeah. And maybe back in the 18s, but like
that one's a little hard to
18s.
explain with just a simple schema. Like, obviously, this stuff is associated with this stuff. Maybe it's not so obvious.
Maybe they did use cornucopias back in the 18s, but I don't think they had a logo yet. Like, they probably just had their name.
Fruit of the loom.
Like, I don't think you could put logos or like tags on clothes yet.
With the old printing presses.
Didn't they have to like weave their clothes?
Well, that's the loom part.
Yeah.
They're on a loom.
Fruit of the loom.
Right. So you're convincing me. It's a good argument that the actual graphical logo was more difficult for them to put on clothing at that time. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was.
Maybe I'm underestimating people in the 1890s, but
You probably are.
I don't really think that they would use cornucopias in the late 1800s, though.
That would be more difficult to add the cornucopia to that logo, because everything else is just a bunch of circles.
Yeah.
Grapes, apples.
And maybe the leaves are a little difficult, but...
Right. But I guess the cornucopia is just like half circles.
But it's also like made of sticks, and you want to add that detail. And you've also got to use different fabric shades of one specific color.
The speculation running rampant. Love it. You can convince somebody one way or the other. All right, moving on. Smokey Bear, the unnecessary the. The false memory. For over 75 years, the widely recognized or assigned mascot of the U.S. Forest Service, tasked with warning about forest fires, has been commonly and mistakenly referred to as Smokey the Bear. And I am so sure that's what I refer to him as when I was a kid. Smokey the Bear. His correct and official name is simply Smokey Bear. The inclusion of the definite article the is incorrect. It's disappointing too. I want it to be Smokey the Bear because it just seems right to me. Psychological explanation. Do I sound disappointed? This particular Mandela effect is largely attributed to the principles of familiarity, repetition, the illusory truth effect, and linguistic tendencies. The primary driver of this misremembering is a popular 1952 song about Smokey, where songwriters Steve Nelson and Jack Rollins intentionally added the to his name to maintain the song's rhythm and meter. That's probably where it comes from. The widespread popularity and frequent repetition of this song over decades likely cemented the incorrect version of the name in the collective memory of generations. This example uniquely highlights how artistic or creative liberties, even seemingly trivial ones like a song lyric, can unintentionally shape and distort collective memory. It demonstrates that cultural artifacts can have a profound and lasting impact on how large groups of people remember specific details, illustrating the powerful role of media in memory formation and distortion. Furthermore, English linguistic patterns often involve the use of the before a proper noun when referring to a singular, well-known entity, e.g., the Queen. the president. This subconscious linguistic tendency might lead individuals to naturally insert the into Smokey Bear, making it sound more natural or complete within common speech patterns, thereby reinforcing the false memory. Freedom of liberties. Maybe that's what happened to the Berenstain Bears, because somebody was told through audio that it's Berenstein or Stein, Berenstain Bears. Why do you spell that? I don't know. Put an E in it. Okay. That's how, I'm just saying, maybe that's how a publisher or whatever would have printed it wrong. Because it was told to them through audio, whether it was a telephone or voice. Want to read the next part? Coming to an end here, I think.
Yep, just a couple more paragraphs. The Mandela Effect, while often manifesting through seemingly trivial pop culture examples, serves as a profound demonstration of the inherent fallibility of human memory. It underscores that memory is not a perfect, immutable record of past events, but rather a dynamic and reconstructive process susceptible to various influences. The phenomenon reveals how easily false memories can be induced and critically how challenging it is for individuals to distinguish these fabrications from genuine recollections. People often exhibit high confidence in their false memories, making self-correction difficult without external verification.
And that's just the stubbornness of people. People are so confident in themselves and they're stubborn that they don't want to let themselves believe anything else.
Or they don't want their ego to be hurt.
Here you
go. Because they want to be right.
That's right.
And they don't want their ego to be shattered because they are wrong.
Nobody likes hurt feelings.
No one likes a shattered ego.
Nope. The implications of collective false memories extend far beyond mere trivia. They can have tangible, real-world consequences ranging from serious issues such as the misidentification of individuals in a police lineup to the widespread dissemination and acceptance of misinformation in public discourse. By demonstrating the ease with which large groups can share and internalize false memories, the Mandela Effect serves as a powerful analogy for how misinformation and disinformation can take root and spread with society. If individuals can be confidently mistaken about a character's visual attributes or a famous quote, they can be equally confident and equally mistaken about more consequential narratives, including political or historical events. This suggests a critical societal vulnerability, particularly in the digital age, where information, both accurate and inaccurate, spreads with unprecedented speed and reach. This phenomenon highlights the urgent importance of critical thinking, rigorous source verification, and robust media literacy skills in navigating an increasingly complex information landscape. The Mandela Effect forces a fundamental reevaluation of the reliability of our personal and collective memories and underscores how easily our perception of reality can be subtly altered.
The study of the Mandela Effect reinforces a fundamental understanding in cognitive psychology. Human memory is not static. It is continuously shaped by new experiences, emotional states, and the language used to describe events. Memory changes over time, and its content can be altered through repeated recall, practice, and priming events. This inherent malleability, while occasionally leading to phenomena like the Mandela Effect, it is not necessarily a design flaw in the cognitive system.
Indeed, the brain's reconstructive and flexible memory processes can be seen as adaptive. A perfectly accurate, unchangeable memory might be overwhelming and inefficient, burdened by an excess of irrelevant detail. The brain's capacity to reconstruct memories, to integrate new information, update beliefs, and prioritize the gist of an experience over every minute detail is generally beneficial for survival, learning, and adapting to new environments. The Mandela Effect, therefore, can be viewed as a fascinating byproduct or a side effect of these otherwise adaptive cognitive processes.
Ultimately, the Mandela Effect remains a compelling puzzle, often offering a window into the intricacies of the human mind and the profound power and inherent limitations of human memory. Understanding this effect encourages individuals to approach their own recollections with a degree of healthy skepticism and to critically evaluate the information they encounter, thereby fostering a more careful consideration of what is truly factual, recognizing that the imperfections of memory are not necessarily flaws, but rather trade-offs for cognitive efficiency and flexibility is crucial for mitigating their potential negative consequences in both individual and collective contexts.
Veins. See? Right there. Synapse misfired in my brain. Brains be crazy.
Yeah.
And all this, like this cognitive bias and misremembering and all this, we should do an episode about deja vu and the opposite of deja vu. I can't remember what that is. Which is that ironic? Déjà vu. So there's deja vu, which you stop. How's it go? It's the opposite
like,
of
deja vu is like it's like when people feel like they have seen a place, like I feel like I have dreamed places before and then I see them in real life.
and so you're like you've been there. You feel like you've been to a place you've never actually been.
Like I've seen it before, but I've never actually been there.
And déjà vu is the opposite. Déjà vu is the experience of feeling unfamiliar with something that is very familiar to you. I don't know if we can do a whole episode on those. We might be able to. We could try. But it would be interesting to do that. There's so many crazy things about the brain that we could go into, like the placebo effect. That's mind-blowing. Where you think... All right, well, real quick, one huge example that that they really began studying the effects of the placebo effect is in one of the world wars. I think it was World War II. Maybe it was one. Anyway, one of them. The doctors and nurses were treating patients in the medical tents, and the patients that they had severe wounds, missing limbs and such, and the patients wanted something for the pain. Doc, just give me something. Nurse, you got to give me something. And so the nurses and the doctors convinced the wounded that they were giving them morphine. This is morphine for the pain. This will take the pain away. Where in reality, it was just water. And they convinced them that this will take your pain away. And it took their pain away. Just water. That's the power of the brain.
It's also like psychological sickness. Like one person will feel this way, or like like one person will have an illness, and then they'll tell other people about that, and then it'll keep spreading around, and then suddenly other people have those same symptoms.
Like an empathetic illness, empathetic symptoms when they're not sick.
Yeah. It's just their brain being like, oh, this sickness. Now you have this sickness.
And to really relate it back to Mandela effects, you are convinced this is your memory. You are so convinced that you will fight for that memory and you will convince people with whatever other talents you have, your charisma or whatever. You will say, no, man, this is how it was. Crazy the way your brain will fight for that memory.
Yeah.
Or your brain will empath with someone else's symptoms.
Yeah. And then your brain is like, okay, body, this is happening. We've got this sickness, I guess. Really? There's no sickness.
But how can the brain trigger the other way? Like if you are sick, if you are actually sick, can your brain trigger and be in another way, the opposite of whatever that empath is? Like, I want to be better like that other person. How can my brain trigger to be well and get rid of this sickness? How do you wake that up?
I don't know.
Crazy. All right. Mandela effect or Mandela effects. Question brought.
Question answered.
Until next time, we'll bring on another question. A production of Wayward Things Network.